I am Bonnell St. Rose, your host for Restoring the Pride. Today we are at Fordu and we are happy that you have joined us once again to celebrate the magnificence of the Peto management area. Sad to say, this is our final installment. We do have a lot to get to, including that promised chat with Mr. Giles Romulus, whose vision decades ago has given us reason to celebrate. First, we celebrate creativity as we prepare to introduce another exciting feature to look out for, the PMA and World Heritage Fashion Week. To explain the concept, we are joined by a daughter of the soil, Candy Nicholas.
Okay, I'm very proud to be involved with this cultural movement, which is now taking the form of a fashion display, which is going to highlight the cultural, economic and social aspects, and furthermore the universally outstanding value of the Petos as a World Heritage Site, and express that through fashion. We have a wonderful, diverse, talented group of people, not just in Soufrière but in St. Lucia and in the rest of the region, and it would be so interesting to see how that could be featured through the lens of fashion and other arts.
As one who has been around in the fashion industry, I think there is tremendous potential. From a national perspective, the Petos, as the iconography of the Petos, are so deeply spiritual and so intrinsic in the identity of the country. But I'm sure in many ways that we as St. Lucians and artisans do get a strong sense of inspiration, probably from the space or from not just the Petos as they stand, but the vastness of the PMA. As we have learned, there are so many zones to it, and I think there's the opportunity for us as a country to leverage that type of presence, that type of status of the Peto management area as a World Heritage Site in a way that we haven't done before. And my colleague Candy will speak to it more, especially as a Soufriérian.
It is a wonderful concept to merge our celebration of the Petos as a World Heritage Site with fashion and some other forms of art. And it means a lot to me being from Soufrière, because how could you not be inspired by the beauty of the Petos and the surrounding areas of Soufrière and its environs.
Oh, give thanks and praise to the Most High Jah!
And to use that as inspiration, or to let the Petos be your muse, is going to be something that would be nothing short of spectacular. And to have these things displayed with the Petos as the background, with some of the other activities that have been planned, like the Soufrière Night, to be able to also purchase these items and to just celebrate art, celebrate fashion, and celebrate Soufrière all in one gathering, all in one event, is an amazing thing.
There may be a unique opportunity for not just designers, because often once you hear Fashion Week, you immediately think of the immediate practitioners of the fashion designers and whatnot. But if we are to go just a bit further and look at the way the world is moving in terms of the orange economy, that is also a more universal language of the UN. The World Heritage Site is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so there are those immediate international connections that do filter down. So I don't think it's a matter of looking at it in isolation, that this is the World Heritage Site and this is the PMA Fashion Week, but I think it's a matter of identifying how do we utilize the creative talent and innovation of everybody in the cultural industry or the creative industries, which the Fashion Week would naturally be a subset of, in ensuring that there is equity in something like PMA Fashion Week.
I feel so blessed to have been not just born in Soufrière, but to have grown up in Soufrière. And even when a lot of my schooling was done outside of Soufrière, driving into the town every weekday, when I would see the first little piece of the Peto, I was in awe every single time I saw it. It never gets old. It never gets old when I'm flying into St. Lucia. It never gets old when I'm going to Soufrière by boat. There's just this awe-inspiring reaction that I get every time I see the pitos. So I'm very proud of my upbringing. I'm very inspired by my upbringing, being from Soufrière. I'm a Soufrière girl through and through. Every fiber of my being screams Soufrière. And it is an amazing thing to not only see what's happening now with the Pito management area and the new focus that's being brought to it, and to preserve the environment, the social value, the economic value, the cultural value, the spiritual value of the Pitos and the Pito management area, but to also be part of that movement. I feel like I am giving back to my home and also helping to preserve it and to make it better.
Some of what has been proposed include, of course, the introductory night, the grand big splash, where you have the introduction of the models, designers, and everybody else who would be involved in the process. There is also a suggested, almost a photo shoot expose. Again, going back to that storytelling, that there's so many elements and features of the entire space within the PMA, that there is an opportunity for representation of St. Lucianness or that spirituality of the PMA through photography and film. But that would be, would have a lot to do with location scouting and whatnot. There is also a proposed banquet party. There is the grand fashion show night as well, which features, I think, more folks from the area, which I'm sure Candy would speak to and thoroughly represent. And of course, there is a heritage street party, I think right on the street front of Soufrière. And of course, apart from wearable fashion, there are other accompanying accessories and other factors that would come with it. So it would be an opportunity to display that before getting to the grand night of the fashion show. So there is an entire week of proposed activities, beginning with the introduction night, of course. Whatever form that will take. Again, this is still in its concept and infancy stages, slated for 2022.
What I look forward to is the revenue generating aspect of this whole project as well, because we see people from far and wide of every race, color, creed, socioeconomic background coming to Soufrière. And being from Soufrière, I know some of those people who come through Soufrière. Even Oprah had said that the Pitos, it's one of the top 5 things you should see before you die. And to be able to create an avenue of artistic expression, which could also be an avenue of revenue generation that could go towards the efforts, because the effort to preserve the integrity of the Pito management area will take resources, money being one of those. So this is a very unique and welcomed way to bring some revenue generating activity into the whole preservation effort.
Much thanks for Louis Victor and Candy Nicholas as we look forward to the PMA and the World Heritage Fashion Week. And talking about fashion and the inspirational Pitos, we go to Japan, where a St. Lucian has been participating in a Japanese tradition wear kimono competition. She will explain that in a bit. As we will see, Maggie has used the pitons as an inspiration for her design.
A kimono is the Japanese national wear, and ki means like kiru means to put on, something that you put on, so clothes. Okay, and mono means something, so something that you put on. But it's really a gown, but there's an art to it. Actually, there are professionals who helps you get dressed in it. the whole idea of the kimono event came about through an organization called the One World, Imagine One World Kimono Project. Imagine One World thought that for the Tokyo 2020 Games, it would be a great idea to get the whole world united, promoting peace with the whole world, a representative from the whole world, dressed in the kimono, which is the Japanese national wear, but that kimono would be representative of their own culture. So what they did, they had different contests for people to research about the different countries and find out what are the key features that could be represented on the kimono. And for St. Lucia, 2 university students placed first and second. So the 2 designs, what they did, the Imagine One World folks, what they did, they combined, because they were both so good, they combined the design of the first place winner and the design of the second place winner, and it turned out to be what you saw on your TV station, I believe it was, or if not the newspaper as well. For St. Lucia, what stood out for them was the national flag. Yeah, the cerulean blue sea, the sky, the pitons. The first aspect of it that appealed to me when I saw it was like, wow, the pitons, because initially the kimono is displayed and it looks like a picture, it looks like a painting, and when you put it on, and they were able to have it to sit directly on my leg to the front and to the back, the other piton. So whichever direction I turn, you were able to see the pitons. So for me, as a St. Lucian, seeing the pitons on that kimono, it was like paradise on earth. This is the way I would put it. I mean, it's that kind of feeling. Like it took all heaviness away, and it made me feel as if, no, I'm not here. I'm in heaven. I mean, this feeling, that feeling of happiness, it's almost unparalleled, to see that the place that I love, the place I call home, the place that gave me my identity, the place I feel God designed just for the world to go and relax. Because St. Lucia, there's something very therapeutic about St. Lucia, something very mystical about seeing the pitons. So for me, I wanted to share this with Japan, and I'm looking forward to, in the future, having some kind of tour to invite people from Japan to go to go see the pitons for yourself. I mean, seeing it here, you feel it wows you, but when you see it face to face, you actually feel the connection. There's something mystical about the pitons that I would love for other people to experience, especially people that I've grown to love here. I would love to share it with them. The pride was just immense. I just feel with overwhelming pride, and people getting to have a sense of what St. Lucia is all about and what makes us St. Lucian. We're very proud of the pitons, and it is something that I hold close to my heart. Yes, the pitons means a lot. I mean, I am extremely proud to be St. Lucian in Japan, and Japan is a place of excellence. And when I present about St. Lucia, they see there are so many things of excellence about St. Lucia that we ought to be proud of. So St. Lucia stand proud, stand tall as the pitons. We have a lot to be proud of. Happy Independence Day. May God bless us all, and may St. Lucia continue to grow exponentially. May our culture touch every corner of this world. May everything about us, be known throughout the world, because we have a lot to share with the world. The world is a better place with St. Lucia in there.
That is even more reason to be excited about the PMA Heritage Fashion Week. And now, let's focus on a proposed PMA World Heritage Tour. As we have established, the PMA is more than just the majestic Twin Pitons. It is about the entire region. And here to explain the boundaries and various attractions and sites that will comprise the tour, we're joined today by Sivako Joseph and Gabriel Parler Jude.
Edward Innocent captured it thus. First town laid
in this valley, stretching beyond,
the strange peaks,
that mysteriously guard
men and nature. Pala, I heard the PMA office is thinking about a PMA World Heritage Site tour.
Garçon Sakai bon. If they package this thing properly, there is enough on the cultural, historical, and physical assets of the community to talk about.
I hear also that the idea is for them to start up by Bouton Junction, where a historic and general panoramic overview of Soufrière will be provided.
Of course, that's a good start. Because from there, you can see everything beyond the Pitons, OPL, you can see Ladera, you can see the town, you can see the church, the coastal areas.
Wow.
So it's really a panorama from that
view.
point. That's a good point at which to start.
And it is the thinking that during the drive, key attractions, as you mentioned, featuring the cultural, natural, historical, will be pointed and detailed. Garçon, est-ce que vous faites any bagay pour moucher les hommes?
Saudia.
Est-ce que vous faites any bagay pour moucher les hommes?
Alors comment mando Saudia ou vie di bêtise?
Oh,
C'est souffou y'a ni bagay boy. Plenty. The cemetery. And you know the Soufrière Cemetery is the oldest operating cemetery on island.
Is that so?
Operating since 1765, non-stop.
Non-stop.
Whilst it is not the oldest, it has been operating for the longest. And it continues to operate.
Interesting.
That is right at the entrance of the town.
Yeah.
Then we have the fisheries complex, right next door, built by the Japanese to replace what was before. What was before was more traditional, but what is now is very touristic. So it's a good place to start. So the route coming down alone allows you to give a panoramic overview of Soufrière.
Makes sense. And I hear that further into the tour, after you have explored the town of Soufrière, the Catholic Church, and the Soufrière Square. Now, what will capture people about the Soufrière Square?
Well, recall 1798, French Revolution.
Ah, yes.
Liberté, fraternité, égalité. And recall that St. Lucia was one of the bastions of the French Revolution. Soufrière was at the time the economic center, though it was not the seat of government, so it was not the capital, but it was one of the strong economic centers under French rule.
And
at that very square, there was a guillotine.
Ah, the guillotine.
Right, that was being used to execute the Negmaon, the runaway slaves who left the plantation.
You're
and
talking about them same people that was the Flobagaya and them.
That brings us right into Nenen.
But now there's also another monument in the Freedom Square. There's a monument in the Freedoms in the square.
It is called the Freedom Monument.
That's why I'm mixing up the thing there.
It's called the Freedom Monument. Of course, it is in a redesigned square.
Yes, and it is also possible in that tour that the people will check out the farming experience of the people of Belfort.
Yes. Belfort. Belfort, Chateau-Belair, these regions are also very historic regions in the island. It is said that all the chateaus are areas where treasures were hidden.
Chateaus.
So Chateau-Belair, is an interesting area in that regard.
All right. Now, what else is there in this region of the tour?
Well, we have Tête Paul.
Tête Paul.
Tête Paul, from which you can get a really majestic view of the Petit Piton. It is so scenic that it is possible for you to take a photo at that point and practically appear to be touching the top of the pito. So very interesting site for tourists who would like to visit the area. It is also in close proximity to Font-Jean-Libre.
Tell me about Font-Jean-Libre. It's on lib, free.
Yes,
and-
freedom,
yeah,
freedom, Font-Jean-Libre. Valley of liberated people, if we translate it to the Creole. And we know around the same French Revolutionary period, with the persona of Flore Gaillard as a personality similar to that of the
Harriet Tubman.
of the Underground Railway in the US.
I am Flore Gaillard. Sabine Grospoint. Metnek Mawo. Il fait soldat anglais pissé. They call me the white man's terror.
And Flore Gaillard, we were told, would take the slaves off the plantations. And along their route from the plantation, they would spend the night in a cave on Gopiton, the trail going through Font-Jean-Libre to that place. And that stone was called, the rock was called Wash Nenen. And below that rock was the cave. And 6 slaves could sleep for the night in that cave together with Nenen. And on the following day, they would continue the journey, which would take them to where we are.
Where we are?
We are at Fondou.
At Fondou.
Yeah, so this journey would take them to Fondou. It would take them through Rabot Lake.
Right. Now, before we go to Rabot Lake, I understand as part of the tour, they will stop at Fondou, have lunch, and experience cocoa dancing.
Okay, so they will be going through the route that Flore Gaillard journeyed.
It have a sense. Have a sense of that. I
Yeah.
sense in that. Now Rabot. Now there is something that links Flore Gaillard also to Rabot.
Yes, because Rabot Lake was part of the route that she used with the slaves that she was running away with. So they will pass through Rabot Lake, through Kwalibu, which we
Kwalibu.
now call the Sulphur Springs, yeah, and through Monsouf, OPL, through the forest, and to go as far as Trois Pitons.
So that's going to be a very interesting tour.
Well, I don't know how far the tour will go
I don't
because
think it's
you,
going
you
all
can go
into
through
the
the forest all the way through Trois Pitons.
I don't think they're going all through
it's
the
a
hills.
very interesting trail.
I
and
don't recall they going all
persons
through
who are
the hills.
interested in hiking may want to hike that trail.
But also the thing you said about Rabot, General Flore Gaillard was a strategist
In the
helping
battle at Rabot.
Yes, in helping
Yeah.
the French take on the British.
Yeah.
And it's because of her strategy where she understood the Rabot Lake.
Yeah.
She trapped the British.
The history says that a parapet was built. You know, a parapet is an artificial mountain. So you pile up dirt and build a mountain in order to divert the troops that were coming from the south. Yeah? And while they were diverted due to the presence of the parapet that appeared as a mountain in front of them, they could hear cannon fire, which really was the bamboo cannon, the boo. Pete Bouek Babou, our famous poem by our past president, Mr. Ale. Yeah? So the boo bursting cannon disturbed them and sent them towards the direction of the lake.
Yeah.
And as they rushed through the lake, a number of them, due to the sinking sun that were
Yeah.
there, sunk into the lake. And that gave the brigands the advantage because
Yes.
now you have a lesser army.
Yes,
to-
yes.
to-
They swallowed
to
some
fight.
guys.
Yeah.
So they have them on all sides now,
Yes.
west, east, and north.
Yes.
Right.
There is so much in such a small space, that space that we call the Pito management area. There is so much history, so much cultural treasures in this area. And in our conversation of the part of the tour through the tongue, we didn't mention the possibility of a visit to the now rundown home of Sir Dudley Alexander,
Yeah, well,
who was
it's-
another famous St. Lucian figure.
Non-existent.
And although the house is a
Completely
rickety
gone.
place
It's
now,
gone, it's
but
gone.
I mean the memory is still in the place. Yeah, and also, if the tour is being done around the Christmas time of year, then there is the possibility of seeing the Soufriere Action Theatre out doing the annual masquerade, the Job de War, you know, which is another interesting feature of our culture in the Soufriere area,
Right.
you know.
Wow.
Which the Soufriere Action Theatre have been doing for 21 years now, no?
Yes, that is it. That is indeed the case. And wow, hear that, huh? After all of this marvelous cultural, social, and economic experience of the PMA in Soufriere, they could stop at the beach park and sip a piton,
Sip on a piton. Yeah.
glococo,
Or on
local juices,
a boaty worm.
a boaty worm.
Spirit of St. Lucia. We didn't mention the waterfalls as well that fall within the PMA, the Torai waterfall, if you are interested in a cold bath, the Peters Falls, if you're interested in a warm bath, and of course Kwalibu, if you're interested in a warm bath.
And not only warm
you know,
bath,
or
but
hot.
healing.
And healing.
Go and heal yourself.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
so all of that, the mud bath is also there at Kwalibu, you know. So all of that is within the PMA. We have not mentioned the botanical gardens at Diamond,
Right.
you know, and the Diamond baths,
Waterfalls.
mineral baths. That's also a hot bath
Healing. Coming
built
from
by
the springs.
King Louis for his troops.
Right.
So all of that is within the PMA, and all of that can form part of that tour within the PMA.
Yes. Yes. And the concept is a very good concept. And so it is the feeling that they should get the tour on the road, no heavy load, Soufriere.
Oui, man. Ek lou fin nou sa boire
C'est
ti
Soufriere.
glokoko boire la place.
Oui.
You know, visit the market scene, you know.
Oui. tout
Drink
ça.
a coconut.
Soufriere.
1746 marked your beginning.
No one can mark your ending.
For you must see more men and more strange phenomena.
You shall prosper or die.
In a continuous boom and debacle.
Get
Get the tour on the road. No heavy load. Soufriere, say Soufriere.
And now, to our special conversation with Mr. Giles Romulus. I have the distinct privilege of a conversation with Mr. Romulus, who many will describe as the one who birthed the vision of World Heritage. Mr. Romulus is joining us online as we talk about Go and PTP Tours, the PMA, World Heritage, Pride, Excellence. A candid discourse, translating vision to mission. The PMA is celebrating 16 years. What does it mean to you who were instrumental in getting the PMA started?
Wow, this is historical. It's deja vu. It's reminiscing. It's thinking back over 30 years for me to reminisce about the entire process. I think restoring the pride is appropriate at this time because it suggests that we had lost it. And after the initial impetus towards inscription, one got a sense that the whole attitude towards the Pitons and the pride had diminished somehow. And it was perhaps because of the inability, perhaps, or the lack of emphasis on the benefits to be derived from inscription. So I believe it is appropriate that this program is being run at this time. I think it is putting back the Pitons at the center of national discussion, and also reminding people, hey, we have a World Heritage site that is of international significance, and we have to do everything in our powers to protect it and to use it in a sustainable way for the present and future generations of St. Lucians. We first started speaking about World Heritage designation sometime around 1989 or thereabout. We had started a national project funded by USAID, and it was called a Systems Plan for Protected Areas for St. Lucia. And when we started doing the mapping, in those days we had no GPS and we had no computers as such. We started to do the mapping and doing the ground truthing, we started to realize that Soufriere had a unique assemblage of natural and cultural attributes and assets. And at the same time, I joined the Commission on Protected Areas, IUCN's Commission on Protected Areas, and there was the whole thrust towards getting more sites on the World Heritage List. Our first step was to present the justification to the Ministry of Planning. At the time, Mr. Osbert Dovey was the head of planning, head of economic planning, and we prepared a justification for him, and he was the one who piloted the justification for cabinet when we got the approval to take the very first step, perhaps the most significant step, which is for St. Lucia to ratify the convention. So that was rather easy in the sense that Mr. Dovey understood the value of that convention for St. Lucia, and there was general consensus. What happened thereafter was this establishment of what we call the first committee. I want to call it the first committee because there was a second committee that was established. The first committee started to work, and there were people like Horace Walters and Gabriel Charles and Robert DeVoe and a number of persons, Yves Renard and so on. We started to do the initial planning on that, and then came the proposal for the establishment of the hotel between the Pitons, the famous jalousie controversy that hit St. Lucia at the time. We continued to work, and then there was the division, a difference in perspective between the government at the time and the St. Lucia National Trust. And there were many changes made. There were many, one might say, threats made, and the committee disbanded. The committee disbanded because there was insufficient support at the time coming from major government sources. The government had decided to move ahead with the Jalousie project. The National Trust had moved in the direction of raising funds for the OAS, the Organization of American States, to present an alternative use of the property as a national park. That created a whole furor in St. Lucia, a lot of discussion. I think if you check the newspapers at the time, you'll see the amount of debate it generated and so on. And at that time, around 1991, 92, the whole effort and initiative dissipated. I went off to university to do postgrad, and then when I came back, I realized nothing had been done on that, reigniting the enthusiasm. So we started again. There seemed to have been greater receptivity at the time, and that was around 1995, 96. And the challenges initially was funding. We had the full support of the administration at the time. It was first the administration of Prime Minister Compton and then the administration of Prime Minister Kenny Anthony at the time. When there was the change in government in 1997, the administration of Prime Minister Anthony gave us a grant, and then we used that grant to persuade the World Heritage Fund to give us additional funding. And based on that, we had a planning process in St. Lucia that resulted in all the studies. We did fauna studies, flora studies, we did geological studies, we did all kinds of studies that would help us prepare a convincing dossier for submission to the World Heritage Committee. I got the opportunity to present the dossier and also to rebut on every single point that the scientists made, particularly concerning issues of integrity of the site, the size of the site, the commitment of the government to the site, the impacts of hotels on the site, land ownership on the site, and so on. So we presented, I remember it was either side of lunch in China at the time. And then the debate began, and you wouldn't believe it was a very tense 20, 30 minutes, because initially the first country to speak, I recall, was the Netherlands, and they voted against the Pitons getting on the World Heritage List. And the discussions continued. I was asked a number of questions as the chief technical person and so on. And the discussions began, and then China rose and made a convincing speech for the elevation of these Pitons to a World Heritage Site. China, then followed by India, two of the heavyweights on the World Heritage Committee at the time. And then subsequently, a number of countries started to support. And eventually, we were able to breathe easy. The decision was taken by the World Heritage Community to inscribe the Pitons on the World Heritage List. And this was an important day for us, I think. I think it showed the kind of work we had done. We were sufficiently convincing to convince some of the big countries of the world. And I think St. Lucia, that day, I remember in July of 2004, I think it was, we were pleased to announce that and to report back to the government of St. Lucia.
How can neighboring communities capitalize and benefit from the Piton management area?
And we must not forget the communities around the Pitons, the Fonjalib community. How do they themselves benefit from it as well? And very important, working with those, since we have the hotels between the Pitons, we are going to have to work with them to ensure that, particularly I'm concerned about pollution in the coastal waters of Soufrière. I think we have to make sure that any effluent entering the coastal zone is of a quality that does not compromise the quality around the Pitons area. I think we have the historical base. I think we have the natural attributes that have international significance. And I think we have a lot of creative people that in St. Lucia who can sit and come up with a body of ideas that could be implemented over time, that both brings out the character and the beauty and the splendor of the Pitons, but at the same time generate economic activity and employment possibilities. And the interesting thing about the whole process of designating the area as a World Heritage Site, it is not the Pitons alone. You know, most people believe it's the Pitons, the two volcanic plugs, or rather cones, andesitic cones. But it is an area of 2,909 hectares, and that includes places like Soufrière Estate, it includes places like the Sulphur Springs, it includes areas north of Anse Yvonne River, and so on. So what we are saying is, this is perhaps the most iconic landscape in St. Lucia, and I dare say the world. It is the most iconic landscape in the Caribbean. And we have the intellectual, creative thinkers that can come up with ideas. I mentioned fashion. I mentioned we already have a lot of trinkets. We have a lot of people creating souvenirs. We need to up the quality of those souvenirs. We need to train the people. We need more training for our artisans and also working the people who have property and have houses in the Pitons. We need to find a way to assist them as well, because we cannot impose restrictions on them to such an extent that it prevents them from enjoying a quality of life that is important to them. So we need to find a way that some of the financing generated can help them in for example, fixing up their homes, if it's even the PMA, and so on. So there's a lot of work to be done. I think the management plan that we had prepared as part of the dossier needs to be reviewed, and it should be done in a very participatory way. But more importantly, I think we need some really, really strong messages from our decision makers, our policy makers, because sometimes you get the idea that, and even from the tourism officials tourism industry that benefits so much from this area, we need to use it more effectively. We need to make that World Heritage designation the center of our perhaps marketing. And most importantly, how do we get the relevant financing? A possibility might well be a percentage of departure tax in St. Lucia. We have a lot of yachties coming to Soufrière. But if we're going to do that, we have to up the standards, and therefore training to a level that is of world class. So when people come to Soufrière, it is world class service you're getting in the restaurants, on the road, by the tour guides, in the tour sites, and so on. World class standards. Let us establish standards that we can aspire towards, and let us build those roads towards reaching those standards. And in so doing, I think the experience because a lot of visiting the sites now is about experience. What is the experience we are offering? And we must offer a unique experience. I think we need to revise the management plan that's there. we need to come up with a kind of livelihoods plan with ideas on how to move from idea to fruition, so to speak. And I'm sure there are a lot of ideas we can come up with to generate economic activity in a sustainable way. I think we need to engage the people sustainably over time. We need to have a good communications plan, a good engagement plan. I think the Peters, all students in St. Lucia and also Soufrière should be using the Soufrière Volcanic Complex or the Soufrière Volcanic Center as part of the geography lessons and so on, so that they could, be field trips down there to look at it. The flora and fauna and the unique flora and fauna should somehow be elevated. We should have paintings of the birds, the unique species found on Gros Piton and Petit Piton, and even as far back in the hinterland as Fort Saint-Jacques, and so on. So we need plans that are doable, and we need a structure with persons who are well trained, who are highly motivated, and we need the support of our decision makers, our government people, our technocrats, and we need the Ministry of Planning. When we were doing the final management plan for the Peters and also writing the dossier, we strategically decided to put the PMA within the Planning and Development Act at the time. And the reason was simply because the decision for all spatial development in St. Lucia comes from the Ministry of Planning, physical planning to be more precise. We do hope that they up the monitoring, and that decisions on the land in particular, we have to find a way to work with the landowners and either compensate them or maybe over a period of a decade buy them out, or have exchange of lands to them, or pay them a less amount, pay them something based on maybe a conservation tax of some kind. But there are ideas that we can learn from other countries and we can adapt to the St. Lucian context. But I do not believe we can just sit down. As I said initially, we have a crown on our head and we are wearing the crown and we're doing nothing to actualize the potential benefits to be derived from that designation. And this is where we have faltered. We have not focused sufficiently on the benefits that we can get from this designation. And as a result, the challenges have developed and have become, in certain cases, they have threatened the designation itself.
Many thanks, Mr. Romulus, for your vision and your hard work in making the Peter management area a reality.
Thank you again for inviting me.
We will continue to depend on your vast wisdom as we move into the next 15 years. And now to our trivia. But before we give you today's question, here is the winner of trivia number 3. Drum roll, please. The winner of trivia number 3 is Kina Nicholas. Congratulations, Kina. And now this week's question. Please provide details on the location of the PMA office in Soufrière. Submit your answers to the PMA office Facebook page. To enter, like the Peters Management Area Office Facebook page and provide your answer under the related trivia flyer.
We are all ecological citizens, and we need to come together to deepen our commitment to protect the goodness and beauty of the gift that He has given us, the world by extension. Creation today is crying out, never like before, and we have a responsibility to take on creation, to make sure that whatever is placed in our care is taken good care of. Today's environmental crisis is impacting us in a particular way, and it makes the poor and vulnerable more vulnerable. Action is needed urgently by Christians of all people, by Christians of goodwill. The whole nations and people need an ecological conversion. We see people burning bush all over the place. We see people not caring for the environment. How can we care for our own environment in the here and now with the authority that Jesus has given us as men and women? How can we care for the environment? How do you see yourself as playing an integral role in restoring that pride, in taking responsibility?
Sadly, we have come to the end of this current series, Restoring the Pride. But this is not the end of our campaign. It will come in many forms, so keep checking our social media pages and keep supporting the Petor Management Area. It was a pleasure hosting this series. Thank you for viewing. I am Bonnell St. Rose. Goodbye.
Restoring the pride, it's yours and it's mine. Let's do this together, preserve for the future. Restoring the pride, it's yours and it's mine. Let's do this together, preserve for the future. Yeah.
Saint Lucia, let's rediscover ourselves. Protect the Petor Management Area. Let's restore the pride of the PMA as the World Heritage Site.
No competition, no time and space for division. I'm on a mission, my mission to restore the Peter and so. No competition, no time and space for division.